All right. Well, good morning. My name is Laura Villegas, and I am an environmental and development economist by training, but I've been practicing in the area of ecological economics more recently. And today I'm going to talk to you about a project we started with hopes of fundraising to cover the cost of additional research that can help advance this pretty cool impact that our partner for this project, Eco2Librium, is having in Kenya. So I work with Earth Economics. We are a small ecological economics group in the US. We're a nonprofit, but we also do consulting work. We work with governments, tribes, nonprofit sector, philanthropists, and sometimes private companies that are interested in learning how to translate to dollar terms all the important things they do for people and the environment. We are based in Tacoma, Washington, on the lands of the Coast Salish peoples, more specifically the ancestral homelands of the Puyallup tribe of Indians and the 1845 Medicine Creek Treaty. Very briefly, Eco2Librium, our partner for this project, is an initiative to use entrepreneurship and business solutions to address social and environmental problems. They are a B Corp award-winning organization, which means they're a business meeting high standards of verified performance, accountability, and transparency on factors from employee benefits and charitable giving to supply chain practices and input materials. So they're doing things well and right. Now, before I tell you about what Eco2 is doing, I want to give you some very brief background on the situation in the site of action. Although of all the people in the world, this group is probably the one that needs the background the least. But first, I want to talk to you about Kenya in general. We could go to the Global Forest Watch page for Kenya and find some basic information, the interesting things that are going on there geographically and historically. I already have this one open. So as you can quickly see here, in the last 20 years, Kenya has been losing primary rainforest, something that it didn't have a lot of to begin with. In general, so this is primary rainforest. This is forest cover in general. That forest cover loss has been larger than the primary forest. And here we can see that the majority of that loss is due to shifts in land cover change. So basically shifts to agriculture. All right, so in numbers, Kenya has lost around 11% of forest cover since 2000. 14% of that cover used to be primary humid forest. And basically, not much is left in a country where 90% of the rural population depends on forest resources for fuel and livelihood. All right, now let's look at what's happening over here in the area where Eco2 operates, which is the Kakamiga Forest. So the Kakamiga Forest is the last remnant lowland indigenous forest in Kenya. It is a protected area, so we would expect, and we do see much lower loss percentages of primary forest, but it's not zero, and it is protected. So makes me wonder what is happening over here that the protected area is not being protected. And well, okay, we saw this. Basically, we have people, and people eat cooked foods, preferably, among other things. So to cook, they rely on wood from the forest. And here we have the very basic tension of environmental and development economics, which is we have the social foundation we need to build and maintain. And for that, we need access to energy for cooking, among other things. And we also have the ecological ceiling that we hope to respect by developing and growing in a sustainable manner. So in this case, that ecological ceiling is that increasingly rare landscape that is critical for supporting ecological functions in the region. So now let me tell you about our partners, Eco2. Okay, so I live in Boise, Idaho, or actually pretty close to Boise. because nobody can pay Boise rents these days. But I live here, and this is a strange place because people here have different ideas, okay? People don't really want the government telling them anything, so there's very much an appreciation for entrepreneurial skills. And also, because of where it's located, people have a high appreciation of nature. So those are kind of two distinctive features of where I live. Okay, so here where I live, there are these two guys, Mark and Scott. And Mark is a biologist, Scott is a businessman. And the story that I heard is that 20 years ago, Mark traveled to Kenya to follow that's the biologist guy. He traveled to Kenya to follow some butterfly. And he went to the Kakamiga Forest and he learned what was happening there. So he wanted to conserve the forest to protect the butterfly and all the other species that he was studying. So he meets this guy, Anton, who is a Kenyan ecologist with a PhD from Oxford. And they decide to partner up and start a business to solve the problem. So they find that if they're going to help avoid deforestation, they need to first address key economic constraints in rural communities. So they set up this business with energy efficient stoves. It is called Stoves for Life. And the idea was to sell energy efficient stoves, which will require less fuel and thus will reduce the amount of wood households get from the forest. These are the Upesi stoves. They can be 40% more efficient than the traditional 3-stone stove. I didn't know why they were called 3-stone stove until it all made sense. But I already told you these guys are widely successful. They're doing really well. But what I really want to tell you is how they got there, because it was a bumpy ride and it's a very neat and humbling learning experience for them. So it's kind of funny because at the beginning, they come with a business model in mind and they have a plan and they're going to do things that way. There's this lady, Jemima, she's local from the village, and she comes and tells them, this is not going to work, not the way you're envisioning it. And they dismiss her, they don't really pay attention to her, and they keep going. And the business is failing. It's failing. They're losing money. And they think it may just not be the right thing for this group of people. Maybe they're not ready for the stoves. Maybe there's a cultural thing. Who knows? So lucky for them, Jemima comes back again and she insists and she tells them she can help them with the selling if they listen. And so at that point, they're pretty much desperate. So they say, okay, we'll do it your way. And this very much begins to work as a microfinance model for business. And Jemima and other ladies who know who is who in the village start using the stoves and telling people about them and selling and teaching others to install them. And the business picks up and it's very much a wild success. They actually cannot keep up with demand. So it's a great story because it's a story of business turning right for the people once they get input from the locals. I also think it's important to mention that it is very much propelled by the involvement of women in the village. So women are those who do much of the wood collection and the cooking, so they would benefit the most from adopting these stoves. Also, they are the ones that have more entrepreneurial skills, which is very interesting. So the guys are used to this model of work where they go to town and work in exchange of wages. They don't really know how to start anything or how to take risks or to think outside the box. They do what they're told. They also don't know who is who and who needs what. And communication and social networking is key for selling things. So it is very much because of these ladies that the community, that the business becomes a success. So anyway, it's 10 years after they began the program, they became a B Corporation certified, which anyway, I already told you that. And they have expanded their Stoves for Life program, and now they have 3 other programs to help reduce deforestation. They have an agroforestry program where they teach villagers how to manage their plots. They have a program for off-grid solar power as well that uses this mobile phone payment system where the users in the global north pay for carbon offsets via PayPal. And they also have this briquettes program where local residents very much reuse livestock manure and turn it into sources of bioenergy. So the program has been from a business standpoint, largely successful. As I said, they cannot keep up with demand, and it's very much running on its own means. So all running well from the business point of view. Now, from the economics point of view and the environmental point of view and the human point of view, it also seems to be running pretty well, like having very good outcomes. Basically, how the business works is local villagers make the stoves with ceramic, then Eco2 purchases them and then distributes them to independent contractors who sell them and then install them. And Eco2 pays for the installation, so the installation is for free, and they subsidize the stoves around 50% of the market price, which is 250 Kenyan shillings. The installation is the most expensive part. And so, well, the stoves are expected to reduce wood consumption by about 40%, in addition to providing all these other numerous benefits, including reduced time spent collecting fuel wood, reduced household income spent on fuel wood, reduced time exposed to cooking smoke, provides jobs for local people, reducing forest wood use and deforestation, and keeping carbon on the ground. So how did we get involved? Earth economics. Well, as part of the normal operations, Eco2, they collect survey data, lots and lots of survey data from sellers, from users, from non-users, because they want to know about market penetration opportunities. They also collect data from employees to see how things are going, but they don't have anyone to look at the data or do anything with the data because they're busy running business and publishing in ecology, biology, and forest management journals because, well, that's what they are doing. They're there for the forest, not really for the people or for the money, for that matter. So I got a hold of them after I heard about their project, and I told them, I love data. Please let me look at your data. They said, well, sure, but what for? And I was like, well, what do you mean, what for? Because I think we can do better if we actually find out what's happening. If we can look under the hood and see what the results you're having or the impacts that you're having. Are people saving time? Are people saving money? What are they doing with the time they save? What are they doing with the cash they get? Are women having more time to go to school, to start a business, to help the kids? If less wood is being burned inside the house, then are they having better health outcomes? All those things. Could this model be an alternative to, say, payments for ecosystem services? And so I say, okay, good luck. We don't really clean the data, and we have years and years of it. So I met with their scientists, and they told me how they go about selecting who they survey. And they are scientists, so they know about random stratified sampling and about proper methods. So we partnered up, they shared their data, and I very gladly and willingly gave them my time to see if we could figure something out that we could use to make a proposal for unlocking additional funding for them to continue their work. And then for us also to see if we can use better survey, or we can get better survey data and use other fancier data analysis methods to look at what's going on. So what did we do? Okay, yeah, sorry, these are all the things I wanted to answer by looking at the data. So what did we do? We started the whole project with a lit review, and we found that there were important knowledge gaps. And then we went about sorting their data. So we were given many, many surveys. We studied them, what questions they asked, what relationships could be established, what could inform a compelling argument, or what could be the backbone of a strong narrative. A lot of this is about storytelling, especially when you're asking for money. So, okay, we decided to focus on the energy efficient stoves and to work with 2 of the surveys and only 1 year of data to begin with. So we selected a few questions to focus on, And we drew some hypotheses on how these variables could be related. As to inform that story, we were trying to build for the donors to give us money. So we created this key to clean the data, turn it into categorical and numerical variables so we could easily describe them with simple statistics. And the last thing is, well, we did my favorite thing, which is put things in the blender and get a bunch of graphs and stuff. So yeah, that's what we did. It's pretty simple, nothing super fancy. But here are the things that we found that could help us tell a good story in broad strokes. So we had a sample size of 681 in one of the surveys and 158 for the other survey, each of them using 1 year of data only. There are more years of data. When we get the money to do more studies, we will do some sort of panel work if we can. But for now, that's what we got. So we found that the interviewees, around a third of them, collect some wood from the forest, or at least admit to it. The majority who do collect use it for an important share of the total firewood they use at home. We found that the stove adoption is likely having some important impacts in terms of human, economic, and social development. And so we can look at them kind of by category. So in time and money, for example, we found most user households are saving time and money since the adoption of the stoves. 80% of the respondents report time savings, and 61% report monetary savings. Not only that, there's also indication that these households are now better positioned to meet basic needs, to invest in education of their children, and to invest in new economic activities. And also to strengthen social ties. That was very interesting. So we find that 78% of the respondents use savings to purchase basic needs, including food and medicine. A fifth of them use their savings to finance investment opportunities, or at least that's how we classify them, and that includes investing in human capital and the future of the community, so education, books, school supplies, things like that. And then I want to talk about the social capital. I think that was very interesting. So we find that a non-trivial number of households, about a sixth, use money savings to invest in what we decided to call building social capital. So that's, for example, contributing to these informal social protection schemes and paying like church services. So these are things like every month I put in a little bit of money, or every week I put in a little bit of money, and then at the end of the month we raffle the pot of money, somebody gets it. That's a form of insurance. In terms of health outcomes, we also found impacts on health outcomes from adopting the stoves are substantial. And we find impacts on air quality. Yeah, well, air quality particularly important, at least as perceived, right? So these guys say, on a scale of 1 to 4, how bad was the air quality before and how good is it now, or how bad is it now? So we found that almost, 44% perceive a quite substantial change in air quality. So a change of 3 in a scale of 1 to 3. And the findings are pretty similar for eye irritation, coughing, difficulty breathing, etc. And going to the clinic. Now, two things we were very curious about were gender and environment. So we wanted to see if we could tell whether women were having stronger results than men, or if we could tease out gender effects, like who is going to collect the wood? Is it the women? Are they going less time? With the data that we had, we couldn't really say anything, which is something we really want to explore later on, but it would require pretty specialized survey methods for that, different surveys. And for the environment, also, the one thing we wanted to answer is, are they using less wood? So we don't know. We couldn't know because we don't know if they're chopping less wood. Maybe they're still, getting the wood from the forest and selling it if they're not using it at home. But we cannot really tell. We got the idea that some households are using the money that they save to get off-grid solar energy. And so that makes us think, okay, the environmental impact is positive, but we really cannot tell anything about wood use per se. Okay, so I'm pretty much out of time, but our next steps are, of course, raise more funds, build a proposal. We have some ideas on how to keep going. Very important for us is to build collaborative relationships, which is why we brought this paper to this workshop. We really want to connect with academics and students and people who are interested in this type of work. And then, of course, if we get more money, we can ask better questions and get surveys the way we want them to look like, we can do more specialized, more fancy econometric work. So thank you. If you have any questions, please email me. I apologize I couldn't be here in person. I was having worries that my connectivity was not going to work, but that's life. So thank you again.